Hello and welcome. Hi, Chris. Nice
Hi
to have
there.
you. Good to see you.
Thank
How
you
are
so
you?
much. Very good. Thank you.
Very
You?
good. So, Chris, you are a consultant for law firms. You've been working with law firms and lawyers for the last 20 years or more. I know that you've been working with over 250 different law firms for many, many years. And I think I remember when I first met you and I asked you what you were doing, you said, I'm the guy who gets calls when, and I might have to rephrase this one, when something is hitting the fan or when the roof is on fire, I think it might have been. So with
Right. Yeah,
with
that's
this
correct.
situation right now, the fan is pretty busy, the roof is pretty much on fire. You are incredibly busy. So I was hoping you could share with us a little bit more about what you're doing right now. What are the kind of negotiations your clients are focusing on right now? What are the challenges? And maybe what is some advice you have for people out there, for lawyers and law firms?
Right. Well, normally, law firms are a bit hesitant to change, and this has changed a lot recently. Partnerships are incredibly resilient, and they show the force now. They show how quickly they can adapt to different circumstances. Most of my clients have shifted into virtual rooms and are simply doing the same thing, but under different circumstances. And processes work incredibly quickly and now in a different way than before. And while for 5 years ago, everyone would say, oh, it's impossible to work from home, it's impossible to have a virtual office. Now suddenly everybody's doing it. So changes in the air if you want, and we will see more of that. And my job is basically helping firms to change. In this case, I got something to back it up very quickly indeed. So what are the topics in terms of what law firms need to negotiate now? So first of all, I think on their own behalf. I think now they are in a very often in a very strong position to renegotiate fees. As you know, the clients were pretty had the upper hand, if you want, in negotiations of fees in the last years. And now it's just the inverse in most cases, in labor law and everything which has to do with production lines and has to do with rents, etc. And I do see a lot of partners being a little bit hesitant now to play the card they have on their hand, which I think is a shame. Why not simply asking for the highest possible hourly rate you can imagine? That's now, in my view, the best moment to negotiate and to show that I think that's a moment of change where negotiation is a top priority now. That's certainly one area. The secondly is when they have to negotiate for clients. In my view, there was a lot of discussion of keeping long-term relations, etc. But in crisis situations, you need to be able to decide quickly and to use the power position you have. And if you have a good power position for your client, I think that's now the position and the situation to play along and make sure that you get the most out of for your clients. Of course, you should look at the long-term relationship your client wants to have with the other party. But still, it's about negotiating the best deal for your client, first of all, which is the job of a lawyer. Mm-hmm. So these are both two areas where I think law firms have most to do in terms of negotiation these days.
That sounds pretty interesting. Can you speak a bit more actually about, because you said now is the time, it used to be post 2008 that the client had the upper hand in negotiating fees, and now should be the time when it's an opportunity for lawyers to revisit their fees. Would you actually suggest increasing fees for existing clients, or how would you go about that?
Yeah, I would simply claim that this is an extraordinary situation, and capacity is really difficult, and advice needs to be handed out on a very short notice and very high quality. And what does a lawyer does in the end of the day? he is able to handle complexity. And situations of crisis are complex situations where clients don't know what to do, what is right, what is wrong. And lawyers have a gut feeling and have a lot of experience. And now they can, in very short term, and must very often, in very short term, hand out advice, which is extremely valuable. So why should you do this for the same price as 5 years ago, when the client was trying to push down your prices with the help of the people specialized in procurement? You know? So yeah, actually, I think it is now the time to be very cool and simply raise prices.
Be very cool about it. And how would you balance that? Because you mentioned also in your second point that it's key to balance that power play, so to say, that you can now engage it with the long-term relationship. Do you have any advice or recommendations on how to make sure that you're not overusing that power, but also maintaining the relationship?
Yeah, of course, there's a bit a situation where you need to bring about good judgment, right? There's simply a situation where you know you'll see these guys another day. So, and you will certainly make sure that relationship remain intact. But I also believe that in times of crisis, especially if you act on behalf of a client who's under financial, whatever kind of stress, you simply must to do the most to secure his or her position, and to force down the throat of the other party the possible negative consequences. That's what the game is now about, you know. So yeah.
Right. Wow, that's a new turn in so many ways and shapes, not only for companies but also for law firms. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing, for taking the time.
Thank you so much for being with me.
All the best. Stay safe. And
Thank
I'll talk
you
to
too.
you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.